There's a lot of things I could say about my mom. I think I look at my daughter and I see a certain assertive, fierce, caring, loving intensity that I recognize, that I think is what I know is what my mother came into this world naturally hers. You know, she sees us and she says, Mommy, Daddy, Mama, Dad, lie down. She puts her hands on us. She tells us to close our eyes. She wants so much to be heard and seen, and she expresses herself in an open, unfiltered way that reminds me of what my mother did all her life. My mom didn't come into a world that was filled and did not surround her with love. She suffered. People who suffer, some of them respond by closing off and by trying to take everything they can from the world. They feel no one will give them, so they will take for themselves. And some people, suffering brings empathy. Every time my mother looked around her in the world, she wept for people that she saw. She felt what other people felt, and she ached for them, to help them. She had a heart that was wide open all the way through. I think the thing I need to talk about right now is my mother's relationship, though, with the spiritual. When she was a little girl, she was driving with her father Nick in the car, a man that she forgave and loved despite tremendous violence. And she had lost a friend to senseless gun violence. And she said to her father, Daddy, what happens when we die? Where does this go? And he said, what? What happens when we die? Where do we go? He says, nothing. The lights go out. So that can't be. What happens to this? What? This, here, this. Nothing, the lights go out. It's over. And she thought, I don't believe that. I'll never believe that. My mother devoted herself towards the spiritual path. She was a seeker. She was a lover and a seeker. She found a peace like she never found before for the first time. Of all places, when she showed up quite by accident in Woodstock. I have a whole story right there. I'm not going to do it right now. The second time she felt that same peace was coming out of a yoga class, and when she met Swami Satchidananda, her first guru, and she realized it was the same feeling she felt at Woodstock. It was something she never felt before, where she felt at one with everyone there. A oneness, no difference between self and other. And she hadn't realized he was actually the person who blessed and presided over Woodstock. And she recognized that. And every time she was at satsang in the ashram, she had that same blissful feeling. She raised me, seeing me, wanting me to be, her spirit child, spiritual baby. She raised me like a mystic. She raised me telling me I could heal her with my hands. She raised me with all sorts of experiences, and in my childhood, I believed all of them. I grew up believing in magic, and wonder, and the power of my own thoughts. And I spent my adult life not believing. My struggle with my mother in my adult life was that I would not validate her experiences. And she could not let that go. I would not confirm the memories we had together where she knew I had experienced what she experienced, because I looked back and my mind chopped it apart and said, children are suggestible. Of course I believe what my mother believed. Of course I saw a vision. But the mind can do tremendous things. So I believe in logic. And I didn't do this with glee. I didn't do this thinking I'll get her. It saddened me. Because I couldn't believe what she wanted me to believe, which is in her, in what she lived. It hurt her. 10 years ago, I had a really deep depression. I was living with my parents again after the end of 7 years of a love and a life's work in a home that had ended. And I did something I hadn't done since childhood. I couldn't see how I could get out of where I was if I prayed. Like I did as a child, I just said, please God, I need help. I just asked for help, and suddenly laying in my bed in the depth of depression, I had an experience that I only very limitedly ever told my mother about, because I didn't want her to latch onto some truth. I felt enveloped suddenly by what felt like a liquid fire. It felt like a molten flame, like molten honey surrounding me. And it went on for 30 minutes until I fell asleep. And I woke up in the morning, and in the morning, I wasn't all better, but I could put one foot in front of the other again, and I could go to therapy, and I started taking the steps that brought me to Brooklyn, and brought me to the life I live now with my wife and my child. This event, what happened to my mother was not expected. And when the surgeon came out like the angel of death and kept on saying, yes, your mother's body was totally healthy. Yes, her arteries are pristine. But no, we were wrong about what was happening. And the damage is so tremendous that the chances are slim. I threw myself into everything that she would want me to do and everything that I would believe as a child. I prayed. I called upon the community. I laid on my hands. And for 20 days we fought. They told us they wouldn't do a surgery because it was 1,000 to 1. And she woke up the next day and she looked at us, and she looked at Lynn, who come to her bedside, and I spoke to her and I said, do you want us to fight? And she looked at us like, of course. And we took that 1,000 to 1 odds, and it worked. They helicoptered her to Tufts in Boston, and we had a whole other chance. Every day, though, they said, well, you've got less than 50% today. And we flipped that coin again and again and again, and we kept on coming up heads again and again and again. And I said to her when she'd wake up, Mom, you came through so many miracles. You had another one. Just rest now. Just rest. And she'd see me using her crystals. She'd see me doing everything I was doing. And I thought, if she comes through, I'm going to believe everything. in the back of my mind, I also knew all these things I'm feeling, like when I was a child, there's a subtlety to them, and I can think later, what's the most rational, what's Occam's razor? What's the most rational explanation? I didn't think. I took no leaps of faith. There's bhakti yogis and there's jnana yogis. A bhakti yogi, my mother was a bhakti yogi. They find God through love. The only path I could possibly take of understanding reality and whatever I thought was the divine is a jnana yoga, which is, I had to think it first. If my mind couldn't take me there, it's not happening. She stabilized finally, and they said, well, still a long shot, but she's quiet, and we're keeping her so sedated. You know, this is a time after 20 days to go home and do some things, and I went back to Brooklyn on a Sunday, and I thought I'd come back on a Thursday, and I hope that in that time she'd be slowly pushing towards healing. And on, I think it was Tuesday morning, I got a message from Prasad, who was the doctor who delivered me. It was a doctor she had felt very connected to because when she was 2 months pregnant, before she told anyone she was pregnant, before she was showing, he stopped her in the halls of the ashram and he said, I see you are with child. It's a boy. So of course. I never tried to pull that one apart in my mind. Coincidence. I just didn't think about it. And he messaged me and he said, "Has something changed with your? What's going on with your mother? Something changed with your mother. Call me. Reach out to me." And I called him and I'm on the phone with him and he says, "I work in ICUs." He said, "I'm terrible predicting death. Don't get afraid, but my connection with your mother has changed. Something's changed this morning. She's drifted further. This is what it feels like when she's pulling away from life." And while I'm on the phone with him, the hospital's on the other line leaving a message saying, "Something changed this morning with your mother." I called them and, she was not responsive that morning. They said maybe she had a stroke. There's something going on. The next morning, I was supposed to go back Thursday, but I'm worried. And in the morning, he sends me a message. He says, "Ramya is dying. You have to get up there." And I'm crying, and my daughter says, "Lay down, Dada. Lay down, close your eyes." It was only the second time she ever said this to me. She never started saying this to me until my mother was unconscious. And the only other person who ever used to say, whoever says to me, "Lay down and close your eyes," I go, "I don't want to close my eyes. Don't make me close my eyes." She puts her hands on me, and Ela had been saying again and again earlier, "Grandma has big boo-boo, it gets better soon." And she says to me this morning, "Grandma, no boo-boo. Grandma almost done." And I get in the car and I rush up. I get there on Wednesday night, and I get there and they say, "We confirmed there's a fungal infection. There is no coming back." And I sleep that night, and I wake up in the morning with the nightmares I've been having every morning where I saw her when she tried to speak, and blood would come out of her mouth because she couldn't be stopped from talking by a tube. And they'd rush me out, and all the cuts on her body. And that morning I woke up in another one of those nightmares, and I feel all of this coldness in my chest, and my phone is off, so I don't hear the messages where they say it's a really hard night. She might pass this morning, and that her lungs they're not coming back. The other thing I saw in that moment was I just saw birds and eagles fly, eagle trying to fly. And I get in that morning, and she's asleep all that day. Her head is down. She looks very peaceful. I sit with her and I hold her hand tight, like I wasn't before. I didn't want to infect her, because it was so crucial with an open chest that she not get an infection. And I'm holding her hand, and I'm holding this rabbit, which is the last gift she gave me when we took 3 weeks in Greece together, like no trip we ever did, just at the right moment, just at the right time. And I get this sensation that pools in my fingertip and pools in the palm of my hand of what feels like a liquid molten fire. And it slowly pulses up my arms like a slow heartbeat into my chest. And I think, okay, something's trying to comfort me. And it feels like it felt 10 years ago. From experience, I put it in a box in the back of my mind. Didn't poke at it. And they take us away and they tell us about, well, she didn't pass like we expected this morning. She's stable. They have to make the decision to turn off the machines, but there is no coming back. And you don't want her to go through another night like last night. And they tell us she won't wake up. So much morphine. She will die peacefully in sleep. When do you want to do it? I can't. My father says, give us some time, 5 or 5:30. Diana finds a chant. A chant for releasing the soul. I think it's Sufi or something. It's a cow. And we chant for her. And the time comes and I'm holding her hand. And I think I will hold her hand until I feel the warmth leave her. And we chant. And we weep. And I bury my head in her arms. And they turn off the machines. And I think I'll just sit there and feel this happen. And suddenly Diana says, her eyes are open. And I look up and my mother is staring directly into my eyes. And you know when someone's looking at people's pupil a millimeter off, it's different. She is staring me right in my eyes. She opens her mouth and tries to talk again. And she's panting too, and she stares into my eyes. And she takes these last few hiccups. And I am crying. Mommy, I love you. Mommy, I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I'm staring into her eyes. And all of a sudden, all at once, out of her eye, there is a cone of flame. And out of her face pours a golden light. And it hits me in the face and in the chest. And all of a sudden, in both of my hands, where I'm holding that rabbit and I'm holding her hand, it is like a fire hose. It shoots up my arms like liquid fire, like nothing I've ever felt before in my life. And it hits me in the chest and it burns. And it burns and I've never felt anything like it in my entire life. And it knocks me literally back in my chair. And it feels like she pours herself into me. And it doesn't stop. I close her eyes. I hug myself because I feel a burning golden flame from here, where I'm still holding the rabbit, to my heart. And it hasn't gone, so I'm holding myself like this. This is what I'm wearing. And I hold myself and I run out. And I'm like, whatever this is, I don't want to stop feeling it. I'm running to the hospital. I run out into the rain in Boston. And it's raining and it's cold. And it doesn't go away. It's pulsing. And when I say burning, it is burning. It is not a subtle feeling. There is no, is that real? 40 minutes later, it doesn't go away. My father calls me. He wants me to drive. She drove in the dark, and she drove in the city, and it was Boston, it was dark. And I said, I can't drive right now. And we get in the car, and it doesn't go away, and we're sitting in the car, and I'm staring at the windshield, and again, my distinct impression is that she left the hospital with me. I'm looking out and I feel her profile looking over mine, staring out the window, and my head turns. It doesn't feel as my own volition, and my mouth opens. And somebody says, "I love you, Mark." But I don't feel like it's me. The burning goes on for 3 days. I wake up in the morning and I look under the cover to check because I feel like I must have an electric blanket across my chest. I think it's the exposed plastic edge burning me from one nipple to the other. But it's nothing's there. I wake up with nightmares of my mom's pain, and as I wake up with them, the fire burns, and I see flying. I go and I sit down at the Zen, and a friend comes, Nancy, and she sits down next to me. And I look at her and I say, I died looking into my mother's eyes, and what happened, I just can't explain to you. It blew me away. And she says, Shaktipat. I say, what? She says, Shaktipat. I said, what do you mean? She said, she poured herself into you. I hadn't said a word to her, and I start crying. I said, well, how do you know? What do you know? And she said, I sat down and I looked at you, and you looked at me. Adrienne was looking at me. Most of all, every moment, my brain started to try and chop this up. Still did. And I thought, okay, I've got 3 options here. I'm schizophrenic. I'm not schizophrenic. But then my brain would start going to the thing that started to seem most likely. Oh my God, how much did I need this? I needed comfort. The mind does these things for yourself. There's hysterical blindness. There's hysterical pregnancy. This is the struggle between my mother and me and what she wanted for me. But as my mind started to go to that, every moment that my mind started to chop that apart, it would quadruple. A flame would ignite like nothing had ever felt, and it would say, no, nope, this is happening right now. Didn't happen. It's not you thinking about what happened before. You're questioning right now. This is happening right now. I don't think that's how delusions work. I don't think when you're having a delusion, you start thinking, oh, am I having a delusion? And it triples. It says no. And I'm left with this gift where I needed to take no leap of faith. She knew how my mind worked. I literally look at all the possibilities of what this could have possibly been. And the most rational explanation is exactly what happened. The first morning, the night before, the last time it was like this, I heard, she said Shaktipat. I looked this up. I had this memory of my mother talking about Shaktipat and his experiences. It's where a guru will give you a little piece of their essence, and it's supposed to bring you to a different plane, a different place in your meditative practice. I can't meditate. I used to always, I'd try it. I'd hear my mom saying, close your eyes, and I'd be like, no, I'm not closing my eyes. And I thought, I'm going to try this now. And I sit down in my house, and for the first time in my life, that night after she talked about Shaktipat, I sit with complete stillness and content. There's noise around me, and my presence feels like the surface tension on water. Every thought or every moment, it feels like a water bug or something pulls a film and tries to pull me aside, but then it just releases. It comes to stillness. My father comes and sits next to me, and I could stare into his eyes forever. I've never felt anything like this. I was like, this is what you meditate for decades for. Next morning was the first morning that I didn't feel the burning flame when I woke up. I was panicked. She'd left, I felt. That same morning, Prasad sent me a message saying, I feel Ramya beginning to dissipate into space. She's still there though, but she
has begun to go to be at a different level. And I run up to the meditation room and I say, please, Mom, please don't go. And I try to meditate and I can't. I give it my best shot, but it's not like the night before. And I stare at one of her many pictures up of Swamiji, and I look at him, and he's kind of looking back at me with this mischievous look in his face, and I say to him, okay, I guess I have to work for it now, right? But what I can't look at is a picture of my mom. I put of my mom on the altar where I put a candle over her heart for this whole time where she's holding me, and I keep on, and I say, Mom, please, please, and I look at it, I'm holding my hands like this, and I feel a little flame again between my hands, and I stare at a picture, and this black and white picture turns to gold, into color, and for 10 minutes it looks like it's alive. I've gotten lots of messages from lots of people who said, I had a dream about your mother. It feels so real. I talked to her, I said, please don't go. And she said, I haven't gone. I'm right here. The woman that my mother chose to carry on her legacy in the store sent me messages out of the blue that she heard. And one of them, when I got there, was she took my head by in her hands and put her hands over my ears. And she kissed me right on the mouth. This is, of course, what my mom would do. And I'd be like, don't kiss me on the mouth. Don't put your hands over my ears. I don't like it. There is no mistaking that kiss. She never saw her kiss me. She barely saw us together. The other message she gave me was that she heard in her head that she would never stop. Two weeks after my mom died, I kept, I was having trouble lots of times. I had my first dream where she came. I was having a lucid dream, but I didn't remember what was happening in my life. I was just fucking around and doing stupid things I do when I know I'm dreaming, because I'm like, I can do something ridiculous now. And all of a sudden, everything disappeared what I was doing, and I had a body in my arms of clay, and then there was a swirling, and it felt like I felt wind and feathers. And my mother was looking up at me, clear as day, and she says, you ready for this now instead? And she says, paging rabbit. Paging rabbit. And there's noise from outside. I think I'm waking me up that morning. There's construction, and she turns and she looks in my dream in the direction of the real noise, and she says, it's hard to compete with reality this morning. And then she says, I think I was really sick. And I said, Mom, you died. She said, I thought so. But then, and I woke up. I'm a greedy child, so I kept saying, Mom, please, more. And the next morning, Ela keeps taking the rabbit, and at some point I take it back and I wear it and I say, my mama gave me that. Mamaji gave me that. I need it right now. And Ela then says, heard mama, heard mama, heard mamaji, heard mama, heard mamaji. And I said, Mamaji's hurt like a big boo-boo now. You heard Mamaji? Like you hear with your ears? Yes. What did Mamaji say? And she throws her arms back like this and her head back. And she says, 5 times in a row, something I've never heard her say this word. Freer and freer. Freer and freer. 5 times in a row. I gave her a bath in Great Barrington. And she says, Mamaji, how? Home. Mamaji, home. And I was like, yeah, we're at Mamaji's home. She's like, Mamaji, home. And I said, where's Mamaji? In back. And I said, did Mamaji say something to you? Did Mamaji say something to you? How Ela feels. I said, what? What did Mamaji say? Ela feels. And I said, oh, okay. And she says, feels. And I said, okay. Feels what? And she says, Ela feels. Mamaji feels. Jonah feels. Mamaji feels. She started calling me Jonah after that. She didn't go for it. I said, feels what? Happy. Ela happy. Mamaji happy. Just a couple days ago, the final, and there was more, but the final one. Diana had a dream. Again, finally I've heard. We're sitting in the house and Diana says, Adrienne, talk to me in my dream some more. And I said, Mom, yeah, me too. I talked to Ela again. 2 minutes later, Ela picks up the remote control to do like a phone game, and she, hello. What are you talking to? Granny Grands, Auntie Martin, Auntie Julia Martin, blah, 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 and then she puts it down. And then she picks up and she says, Mamaji here. And he said, okay, what did Mamaji say? And again, I've never heard her outside of that bathtub say feels. And she says, I said, what did Mamaji say? How Ela feel? And I said, how does Ela feel? She said, happy. Mom, you won the argument? I'm just gonna read 2 things in her words. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention was one of the things I just kept seeing when I closed my eyes is after that dream where she came and she just looked so exhilarated and like flying, I'd close my eyes and I'd see and she'd have that look, this kind of, this look where she's having like the most fun, and she reaches out and it feels like she sticks her pointer finger right on my third eye and just keeps poking me in the forehead. So that made me want to read one of her stories. It's not about her family, but it's about her beliefs. When I was living in the Integral Yoga Institute at the age of 25, I became friends with a young yogi from Colombia. He was very gentle and sweet. Lakshman, the name given to him by Satchidananda, was several years younger than I, blonde hair, blue eyes, small body, gentle soul. He would visit the Uptown Yoga Institute at times where I lived. He lived in the Downtown Institute where I often worked and visited. We became friends. I particularly liked to spend time with him because I felt as though his presence altered my energy. The yogis would call it receiving darshan. I suppose I just felt kind of high, like I did when being around Swami Satchidananda. I enjoyed this, but found it confusing. What was my relationship to this young man? To me, it felt pure, beyond the physical, though at times I would wonder, I would always go back to the knowing that he was a friend on another level. This was unspoken for the most part. I did tell him that we had that he had this wondrous effect, and how fortunate we all were to have his energy with us. During the year that I knew him in New York, I would always ask him how he was feeling. I asked often. He had stomach, solar plexus pain, and weakness. At the end of the year, Lakshman Felipe Martinez moved to Ohio. When I say the end of the year, I am referring to the year I spent in the Yoga Institute in New York. It's actually the summer of 1975. When I moved to Pomfret Center, Connecticut to Yogaville, shortly after, Lakshman moved to Ohio to attend college at Oberlin. His transportation there was a motor scooter. He promised to come back and visit us. I started my life at the ashram after a brief time preparing for the idea of monkhood. That's another story I'll have to tell sometime, but not here.
It was clear to me that was not for me. My relationship to Mark Tundon Lawrence Cohen, had begun. By Christmas week, we had decided to marry. During a satsang, Swami Satchidananda put our hands together and blessed our engagement. I turned around, and to my surprise, Lakshman was in the room. He looked shocked and not happy. He had come to visit, and I did not know until that moment that he was there. I also did not know until that moment what his feelings were. Of course, I greeted him and hugged him. I could feel his sadness and shock. He loved the ashram and all of us, but he was a young man who felt a deep connection to me. He had interpreted it differently than I had. The next day, we walked, talked, and spent time together. I told him how much I loved him, but always felt it was a higher love that I had wondered about that so many times. He was kind, but quiet. He seemed to understand. It was sad, though, but loving. Shortly after, dear Lakshman returned to Overland. We were married in February. They were married in February. On my birthday, at age 27, Mark and I, we were both 27, our life together had begun. The following year, I became pregnant with my beloved son, Jonah Ramu. About 4 months into the pregnancy, I received the very sad news. Lakshman had passed over. How? On a motor scooter in an accident. Kumar Shapira told me we were both very close to Lakshman. I was very troubled by this. For the next few days, I paced both in my mind and body. He had left his body behind. This was hard to process. I was sad and a bit lost with the news. During my sleep, several days later, Lakshman was with me in my dream. We were in the back seat of a car. The drivers were Brahman Levy and Brother Sridhar, now Swami Chidananda. They were always good friends and traveled a lot together. They ran things at the IYI when I lived there. As we sat in the passenger seats in the back seat, I had the feeling we had gone a long way. I was happy to be with him. When I looked at him to express that we had gone a long way, he looked at me, and in an instant we were back where we started. No time, no space. I asked Lakshman, when first we were in the car, how he was feeling. Same question I always asked. He looked at me deeply and said, "Oh, I don't remember that now." In an instant I understood. He was beyond the body. After a little while, I turned to him and told him how I would miss him. He touched my forehead with one finger. "I will always be just as far away as your thoughts." In an instant, I understood and awoke 3 wonderful messages my dear friend had imparted to me. 1, he could no longer feel bodily pain and weakness from this lifetime. 2, there is no time and space in the dimension he is in. In a moment, you can be anywhere. And 3, he would always be as close as my thoughts. I woke up feeling at peace and comforted deeply to know he was still with me. No time, no space. So much time has passed now on the physical. I am 69. My child is 40. So more than 40 years. I sometimes wonder if he is still with me, and then I remember I will always be as far away as your thoughts. Hello, dear friend. On my mother's, this is for you. This is on my mother's first anniversary and birthday, February 21st, 1977. I'm not sure when this is. To Sri Martandan Bhagavat. Dear beloved Martandan, the truth is, you possess all the gifts of father and mother in your divine manifestation, and you have opened your heart to me and are giving me your all. In who you are, I could never dream of anyone finer to cross my path. The everyday snarls are just the unfoldment of the cosmic web of the mother, reminding us to look higher, look in our hearts. You're, in truth, my dearest, darling prince of my soul. You are my riches. You are my gold. In you are held all of the secrets I do not know. I look to you, I love you, I breathe you, I speak you. We are one, in pain and pleasure as well. We are one. One in God, Ramya. And honey, for all your strength and support that you've always held to keep me from falling from the weight of the shadows. For all your courage and manliness that you exhibit in a way that is subtle enough that I can accept it, and sure enough that you are always there for us, in ways that are important. I love you. I love that this is you, and I want you to know. Adrienne. I love you, Mark.